And here we go, everybody. Welcome to the first of 31 more days with Brian and Ed. I'm Brian Carruthers with my best friend Ed Troop. Obviously, we are in different spots. I'm in Moon Township, Ed's in Cecil, in the middle of the quarantine. I don't know how many days in we are, Ed, but if you can see up the corner right above your head, we're 31 days left, according to Governor Wolf. Welcome to the show, Ed Troop.
Hey, great to be here, Brian. And what a great use of technology. We get to sit in our houses and talk and entertain the Facebook world about useless information. And we can't talk much about real estate, which is something we normally talk about during these broadcasts, because real estate, of course, is shut down right now. But that's okay, along with everything else. I don't think there's not much open these days, right? Grocery
Is there
store.
anything else that you can even watch or go and do besides go to Home Depot, go to well, I've been to Home Depot, I've been to Walmart, and I have been. That's it. Home Depot and Walmart, and I've done the Chick-fil-A drive-through, which in itself, it's not like Chick-fil-A even needed a pandemic to have more people go through their drive-through. Like they had it already figured out.
Yeah. Now they have a tent.
But it's weird. Where have you been in the last 2 weeks?
Well, it's when I was in Robinson Township over the weekend, going to pick up an order at GFS.
Okay. Now, do you get out of your car? You've been one of the guys who have been legitimately nervous about this for a month leading up to it, and now here we are. Your worst nightmares come true.
Yeah, it really has. So I, disinfecting my hands. I'm washing them. I have settled a little bit down. Last time we did this, which was over 2 weeks ago, actually 2 weeks ago today, I believe, is when the last time that we did anything with the open house from McDonald's, the virtual open house. And,
right. And you were a nervous wreck that day too, man. You were washing your hands 2 weeks ago so much that like the skin was coming off. They were starting to have rashes on them.
Yep, but now I'm all healed up, so I've done better. I've cut down on the washing of the hands because I'm not leaving the house. Maybe once an hour, once every couple hours or something. But
what's the worst part of being in the house with you?
In 10 minutes, being with me.
Yeah,
I don't know. My wife is in the distance. What's she think?
Okay, what does she think?
It's probably my presence of just being here. Oh, I know what it is. This is an easy one. Thinking I have the coronavirus every other 10 minutes.
Well, that's what people don't know about you as well, as you're a hypochondriac. So. Yeah. You've been problematic forever. You've had the corona before anyone else, even before Mr. Tom Hanks.
Well, though I've talked to a lot of different people out there, and I don't think I'm the only one right now that anytime you have a little bit of a cough, a sore throat, you feel a little warm, you automatically panic, even though it's most likely, well, not most likely, but a lot of us, including myself, this is allergy season. And I suffer a lot from sinuses when the temperatures go up and down like they have the last few days. So I'm going to have a headache. I'm going to feel that. But, of course, my mind, because we're watching constant coverage of all this, goes directly to that. And it sucks, man. It sucks living that way. I mean, in all seriousness, we joke around a lot, but it sucks living in fear every day that anytime you have a little just something go on, which is most likely not that, especially if you've been boarded up for like 2 weeks like I have, other than going to the store, makes you panic.
Yeah, it does. And there's been a new resurgence of exercise in Western Pennsylvania that makes me laugh. Like people who, smoke 3 packs a day, eat chips, never get off the couch. All of a sudden, I talk to them and they go, man, I just really want to get out and take a walk. And I think, well, wait a second. Like this can't be what's on your mind.
Right.
You've been wanting to take a walk for 10 years.
And you go past any of these trails, all of a sudden these trails are having the highest attendance they've ever seen. They're like, which is great. You want to get out and walk, but I don't think the idea is to park in a crowded parking lot and walk down a trail with a bunch of people. So we've actually driven around the trails to find an open spot on the trail where there's hardly anybody around when we've done.
And what do? Put your shirt up over your face when you walk by people?
No, I haven't done this yet. I haven't. I just kind of hold my breath.
Okay, just that's a good idea. Hold the breath and get there.
Right.
Well, hey, we've been holding our breath all day. We have, as we're launching, you see in the corner right above Ed's perfectly shaved head, the number 31. That's how many days are left, according to Governor Wolf, before we are allowed to head back out. And, I don't think we're making light of the seriousness of social distancing. But the truth is, I think with people with kids, even with no kids, single people, everyone's going a little stir crazy. Of course, Ed, you look so good, man. I'm looking at you right now. You look like you're 10 years. Maybe I haven't seen you for a while, but you
That's
look 10
probably
years younger. I look 40 years older.
Well, this is before the quarantine, and then you're after the quarantine of like a month.
Before,
So
yeah, before and after. Yeah,
you got the Tom Hanks thing going on from Castaway, but it is serious, man. I mean, we've talked, and you wake up every day putting the TV on or checking social media, and you're hoping and praying to hear anything, any type of good news, and man, it's all negative news. So I think mentally we just need to circle around out of that and do stuff like this. Dave Matthews, we were big Dave fans. We saw him do his concert in his living room last week. Stuff like that, I think, is what's keeping us sane right now. Any type of form of entertainment that's non-coronavirus related, but it's kind of hard to do that these days.
Well, everyone is stuck in quarantine, everyone watching this, and we thought, why don't we kick off the 31 more days with the ideal Pittsburgh guest? Maybe we should just bring him in. This is a big, exciting moment for us. You all know him and love him as Pittsburgh's living legend. Pittsburgh Magazine. Did you know that Pittsburgh Magazine ranked Rick as the number 50 on the list of greatest Pittsburghers of all time?
It does not surprise me. We were talking a little bit with him right before we came on the air with this, and I was picking his brain for 10 minutes. I was blown away by all the information about Pittsburgh places to eat that specifically where I grew up in the Mon Valley. So it was really cool to hear Rick Sebak talk about some of the places in Charleroi and Monongahela and Belle Vernon where I grew up. Pretty neat stuff.
All right, let's bring him in.
Bring him in.
Everyone knows him and they all love him. Let's welcome in Rick Sebak. Hey, Rick, how you doing?
Hello.
Wow,
Brian and Ed. How are you guys?
What's going on, Rick?
Doing good, Rick. This really shows everyone, whether they're the regular Joe or all the way up to living legend status, how bored everyone is that you're doing this tonight.
Bored? I say boredom is for wimps. I haven't been bored 1 second. So,
well, you keep yourself busy, but also I did see, you've now become a meme of yourself. I saw someone post, if you're bored, remember Rick Sebak spent 7 weeks in the hospital last year with a knee injury. Yeah. How's the knee?
It's there.
Yeah.
I still realize I can't go upstairs, or I don't like to go upstairs unless I have a railing. Okay. So I can't say that it's 100%. But I get around.
But you had your own quarantine going last year, so this is becoming like old hat for you.
No, but it wasn't like quarantine. It was like, actually someone described it as a restaurant disco when I was in the hospital because everybody could come and visit, and people brought me all kinds of food from all over the area and everything. So it was a pretty rich experience. And I did one of my Nebby shows about it called My 7 Weeks in McGee. And actually there was a week in Montefiore before I went into McGee. So I was 8 weeks out. But I can't complain. No, it was pretty wonderful. I actually was on social media with one of the head nurses last night, just to say, hi, how's everybody in the TCU? Because that's where I was, the transitional care unit.
Okay.
Like, well, we strictly have no visitors, but other than that, we seem to be okay. So.
Yeah. So you've had a little taste. You've had a little taste of it, but not what we're going through now.
No. In fact, it was a very social experience. Actually, I heard somebody on National Public Radio today say, we're calling this social distancing, but you know what? It's not socially distant at all. It's physically distant. And I think that's a really important distinction.
I heard that today too. Yeah.
There's all kinds of opportunities like this to be social. Whereas, it's physically distant that we want to be. We want to be 6 feet apart.
Well, I know a lot of people have wanted to be 6 feet apart for a long time. So this is some people's dream to stay away. What about in Pittsburgh, Rick? I mean, you're the authority. Has anything like this, when Pittsburgh flooded back in the day, or when there's been great fires, has this been part of Pittsburgh history, this stay-at-home order?
Oh, I should have. I asked you in advance, should I have boned up on anything? Because there is I write or right now the status of Pittsburgh Magazine is sort of weird because they laid everybody off today.
Oh, okay.
But I've been writing a column for Pittsburgh Magazine for, I'm going to say, 10 or 12 years. And one year for the October issue, my editor, Sean Collier, said to me, could you write about the scariest thing that ever, attacked Pittsburgh? And, he said, we're the zombie town and all this. And just with a very short little bit of research and everything, I stumbled across cholera. We were the cholera capital of America. And it was because the waters were so filthy. And nobody knew at the time what was causing everybody to catch this disease. It was water. And it was very scary. And people who lived on the south side slopes around St. Michael's, they prayed to God to save them. And they didn't get the cholera. So still, when you go to St. Michael's up on the slopes, they have all sorts of things, to thank God for saving them from cholera and all of that. But cholera was really a huge thing here in the 1850s, I'm going to say. But if you go to Pittsburgh Magazine and put in Sebak cholera, you can Google it and find out.
Google Rick Sebak and cholera and see what comes up.
Yes. But I think that's the only thing that I know. I mean, and of course, Dr. Salk was here, and like he's the guy, who stopped polio. And in my show called Invented, Engineered, and Pioneered in Pittsburgh, we do a sequence about the Salk Laboratories. There's still a place there at Pitt, right on Fifth Avenue in Oakland. And they have the coronavirus there. They're working on finding a vaccine right here in Pittsburgh. We're one of the vaccine centers because of Dr. Salk and all the work that he did. So
imagine having that job, the guy who has to transport the corona from the airport to Pitt.
Oh,
man. Don't drop it.
Well,
put it in the eggshell card. Put it in the egg card.
We shot that story, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, maybe even longer than that. But at the time, all their signs were about the dengue fever. That's what they were working on, the vaccine against the dengue fever. So, but they anything comes up like this, they're one of the places in the world where people look to for vaccine research is at Pitt. So that's pretty cool.
It seems like what they're saying now is that at least people in Allegheny County, or at least greater Western Pennsylvania, have listened to this directive from Wolf, and we're not seeing a major spread of it yet. It's working for now, and hopefully people continue to listen and do things like this and stay away from each other and stay home and chase their kids and be at-home teachers and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, it's funny. I think the longer it goes on, it seems scarier to me. It doesn't seem to be diminishing. I did leave the house for a very short time today, and ran a couple of errands and actually picked up some stuff for dinner. There's this Thai place that I love in Blawnox. And I thought, well, if I get as far as Oakland, then I could go on to Blawnox, go across the Highland Park Bridge. But Mainam Thai in Blawnox is my favorite Thai restaurant. Oh, wow. And I thought I'm going to treat myself to some tom yum soup and all of that. And, those little connections are so important. And I thought about, I'll probably make a little post for my Facebook page or something, but both of the women in Mainam Thai have masks on, and they're gloves to take your credit card and all of that. So I mean, very, very reassuring. Everyone's being very careful. So
it is strange to walk through Walmart, which I did yesterday, and you see half the people in there with masks on, and you think, oh, this is what you see in movies, or you see that's going on halfway around the world. And now they're getting the wrong message. At first it was, don't wear a mask unless you have it. Now they're saying, if you have a mask, wear it, because we're not exactly sure if it'll help it or will hurt, but it probably won't hurt, which is, the misinformation is what scares me.
Well, it's I don't know how it's misinformation. It's just that we don't know. So you want to take as many precautions as you can, which I find reassuring.
I was talking to. No, go ahead, Rick. I was just going to say, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said nothing is over the top in this situation. Anything that makes you feel comfortable. If it's wearing masks, two pairs of gloves, a hat, on every inch of your body, whatever you need to do to feel comfortable in this situation. I think there's no wrong answer right now because, like Brian said, we just don't know.
Well, and I think the governor even said something about wearing masks, but where am I going to get a mask? Aren't they
It's too
really
late,
short
right?
supply? I don't have a supply of masks here in the house.
You should have asked the people from the Thai restaurant if you could have had their mask. Scared them
I do have
scared
some
them to death.
gloves. I have a set of gloves here, which I just thought, if I need these, I can use them on something. I think I got them at work when they first put out a box of gloves.
Yeah.
I haven't used them, but they're here.
Hey Rick, what happened in your neighborhood the other night? I saw was there a concert right on your street in Regent Square?
Actually, it was one street over. That guy's backyard and my backyard touched the alley. We were sort of right across from each other. But yeah, he and his wife actually had put out these notices. He's apparently in a band called the Dead End Streets, but he was just going to do a little acoustic concert with a guitar and everything. And they said, it was called Together Apart or something. Please stand 6 feet apart, but come on over to Lancaster Street, and you could see it. And I'm on Richmond, he's on Lancaster. And he was helped a ton by the fact that it was a really windy day and we all lost power. So no one could stay home and watch Netflix or do anything. You had this downtime, and everybody walked over there, and it was nice. And I posted some pictures, but some people got really upset. But the way a camera works, it stacks people up, and they thought people were standing too close together. But some people,
the dimension of the picture started the social distance concern that they were too close.
Distancing, but if you walked along, you could see that, But also, families are allowed to cluster if they're in the same house together. They're allowed to be close to each other,
right?
So
yeah. What was the was there a song that brought down the house that they ended with that you thought, well, this is perfect?
Well, I love this song. It's a song that it's a Springsteen song that I know from Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes called Fever. I got the fever, and he made a little sing along with everybody. But it was music that I knew, so that's always nice. He sang "The Weight" by the band, and
that's good stuff.
Yes, stuff that I know and love. So It was kind of fun. He sang a Neil Young song. It was just nice. It was fun, and just him and a guitar. He stood up on his front yard, which was 6 feet above the street level, and then everybody else was down on the street, and it felt good. It was nice.
It just shows what a better life you're living over in Regent Square, Rick. I live in Moon. When I walk down the street, all my neighbors run in their house. They're like, just go inside. Don't breathe on this guy. And you guys are having the sing-alongs.
Well, I thought most amazing was after it was over, we came back, the power still wasn't on. And I thought, well, I'm going to go, my house tends to be a little dark. I said, I'm going to go sit on the front porch and read. And when I walked out on the front porch, my neighbor's next door, and we started talking, and then the neighbor on the other side of them came out. And so we had a little neighborhood gathering, and that was totally fun too. So, it was we laughed about how old-fashioned it felt to, be hanging out on the front porch talking with your neighbors.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting. I feel like throughout this, one good thing to come out. We talked about how every day you turn on the news and you're waiting for something positive, and it's all negative, and it's very disappointing, and it's very nerve-wracking. But one good thing I think to come out of this is what you just talked about, Rick, and I know my neighborhood as well. When you walk down the street now, everybody's so excited to see another human being other than what they're stuck with in their family that they're over the top nice now. Everybody's friendly, everybody's outgoing, everybody welcomes you from a distance, but they encourage the conversation, and I think that's been one positive thing to come out of this is reconnecting with people.
Oh yeah, I haven't done a lot of walking lately, but I just thought, this is my chance to take a daily walk, and down at the end of Lancaster, the street where the concert was, there's an entrance to Frick Park. So I just thought, well, if I walk to the entrance to the park, I don't need to go in. If I can just get down there and back, I'll feel like I've accomplished something. And so I did it, and then I found that there's a wall, somebody's wall on the side of their house. I could sit down when I got over there, and I'd play with my phone for a while. And all kinds of people came by, and including some good friends who live way on the other side of Braddock and everything, but they said this is part of their walk with their dogs, Autumn Lee and Ryan Habdabney, and it was so great to see them. And we shouldn't talk for a while. So
Well, there is a connect to nature that's happened too, and Ed and I were joking about it. But people who never have taken a walk in their whole life now are either forced to or they're inspired to, and it's probably great for the planet just to turn the cars off for a while. Like I see deer in places that were never there before, even up to a week ago.
No, I heard that on the radio this morning too, that the carbon index is way down because people aren't using their cars, the factories aren't working, that kind of stuff.
I wonder what entertainment's going to happen. You wonder about movies being put on hold for production or music and concerts. Are you in the middle of working on anything, Rick, that has to postpone, or has your Nebby series concluded? Or we're so bored, Rick. We need anything. Can you just post a video of you walking down the street?
Well, it's funny because we're doing a whole bunch of stuff at QED. And someone said, we're busier than we usually are, mostly for social media, because changing the schedule at QED is a big move. You got to, schedules are set months in advance. But last week they did change the schedule and put 3 of my Nebbies up, and that was a spectacular event. People, tuned in, and I live tweeted during the shows, and that was really fun. And I even got the first time I ever got notified from Twitter saying, you have too many tweets coming in. You'll have to wait. So, but I'm sort of blessedly between projects. We just did a big proposal to PBS for a new series of national shows. And it's just so funny that what happens to that? It's right. I think our lives are going to be before the pandemic, after the pandemic. Everything's going to have to start up again. It's going to be a chore.
It's like the way people talk about the war, where they're like, before the war, we did this. And this is, exactly. This is our kind of war.
But tomorrow is WQED's birthday. It's also April Fool's Day, which I've always liked. I'm going to try and do a little video tribute to WQED, and maybe even include like a little. I passed this idea by one of our vice presidents today, and she liked it. I said, "Well, I can even do a little pledge break if you want." And
there you go.
Anytime we can do a pledge break, that's good. But I said, and I'm going to say, try to put the 66. We're going to be 66 years old tomorrow, and right now I am 66, so it's kind of nice. For a couple of months every year, I'm the same age as WQED.
Wow!
Wow!
You were born. You and WQED were born at the same time. I think I knew that before you even told me that.
That was meant to be
in the same year. I'm born in 53, and they're born in 54. But I'm not to my birthday yet, so I'm still 66. QED is going to be 66 tomorrow, and we're going to ask people to, if they feel like making a donation, put 66 in it somewhere. You want to give us $1,066 or $1.66, whatever. Any way you can do it, just to remind us that you were there and this is what you heard this pledge break. So, but it's always been a really important thing for me, and I have this connection back to those first days, which was the woman who first gave me a job in television, Josie Carey, was on QED the first day it was on the air. And she and Fred Rogers did a show called Children's Corner, which was our first program. So, I have weird connections through all of that. And I remember Fred even one time said to me, you and I have both done puppets with Josie, so we have a special connection. So
how cool.
It's funny because I was thinking about that, and I have these old glasses. A friend of mine, Casey Brown,
look at that.
It's QED for their 25th anniversary. They made these cocktail glasses. So that's kind
what are you drinking in there, Ray?
I have Thai iced tea because at Mainam Thai they gave me some Thai iced tea.
The leftovers.
Nice.
The leftovers.
Very good. I was just curious, what does Rick Sebak have in that drink? Hey, we were talking earlier about Arnold Palmer and Latrobe and the impact on the community, but my goodness, where Fred Rogers didn't even get on my radar, and he's at the top of that list being from out that way. So talk about your relationship with Fred Rogers. I think a lot of people would be anxious to hear that.
Well, it's I grew up in Pittsburgh. I went to Bethel Park High School. I went away to school. I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in the early 70s. Then my first job in television, I had been a summer intern while I was in college. And then after college, I worked at South Carolina Educational Television, which is what they call the PBS network in South Carolina ETV. And I got there by working with Josie. I had written her a letter and said I remembered her from Pittsburgh. I didn't know her, but I remembered her from Pittsburgh Television, and I was looking for a summer internship, and I had gotten a fellowship that would pay for the internship. So I was kind of lucky. I could say, I'd like to come be an intern and you don't have to pay me.
Right.
And so I went and did that. And then after I graduated, I eventually ended up back there, and I worked there for 11 years. But so I found out about the opening at WQED through a friend in Denver who had worked in South Carolina. He called me one day and he said, there's an ad in Broadcasting Magazine. You should answer. And I said, why? And he said, it's in Pittsburgh. And I said, do I want to go back to Pittsburgh?
Right.
And he said, you never see a big station like WQED advertising for a producer. You should send a tape. So I did. And I got this job. But I mean, part of coming back was like, oh, now I'm going to have to meet Fred Rogers. And, I know Josie really well. I even drove Josie from Columbia, South Carolina back to Coriopolis one time. And, she didn't know how to drive. She learned late in life, but she didn't at that point. So, you meet Fred Rogers on the elevator, usually at work first, He was coming to work, and he and I worked on the same floor. We both worked on the second floor of WQED back in those days. And right away, I was assigned. The first show I did was about the hospitals and transplants, because I came back in 1987. And in 1987, more organ transplants were done in Pittsburgh than in the rest of the world combined.
Oh, wow.
So we were the world capital of organ transplants. And I did that show. And then my boss said, listen, next year is Mr. Rogers' 20th anniversary on PBS. And we want to do a show about Fred. And that's your next assignment. So right away, I was the new guy. I had this weird connection that I knew Josie really well, and he knew Josie. And sometimes they didn't get along, or they weren't always seeing eye to eye. And so I got to interview him, and I interviewed him for 3 hours one day in his little apartment on Ellsworth Avenue.
And that was on recently on your Nebby series, right? On QED?
I went back and looked. Yes, just because, Fred Rogers has had such a great year and so many people are aware of Fred Rogers, I made a Nebby show called My Interview with Fred, where I included some pieces of the interview that had never been seen before.
Yep.
And it was fun. It was fun to look at that. And also, at a time back then, we didn't want the pauses. But at this time when I did it, I was able to leave the pauses in. And if you asked Fred a question, he would often pause for quite some time. And I like, you hear me ask the question, and then there's a long pause,
right,
while he figures it out. And they're effective. They're really. Now we love the pauses.
Well, that's what I was curious to ask you. With Tom Hanks' portrayal of Fred, it almost seemed like he was impossible to communicate with at times. Is that an accurate observation or an accurate impression of Fred that Tom Hanks did?
Huh? You mean that it was like hard? It was never hard to talk to Fred Rogers, except he always wanted to turn the conversation to you. You wanted to talk about him, but no. He would always try to turn the conversation, and that's in that movie. The young, journalist who's going to write a profile of Fred Rogers. Fred keeps twisting it around to him, and I think that's totally true.
So you saw that. That was an accurate portrayal there.
Yeah. Actually, one of the things I found odd is, Fred had absolutely perfect posture. And
we're both hunched over right now.
Yeah, we're like,
I was hunched over too, but Fred always has his shoulders back, and he was always like straight up and down, and he always weighed 143 pounds and all of that. But the I think Tom Hanks didn't get that. He was a little slouchy for Fred, which
Okay.
but I have that same problem with the statue over on the north side. It's too hunched over.
That's not
I
the
always want
posture of Fred Rogers.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, how interesting. How interesting. Well, I always wonder when, in your perspective on it would be when you would listen to Steve Blass, who obviously was a great pitcher for the Pirates, now sit in the booth and talk about Roberto Clemente and hear people lament and praise and almost put Clemente at a saint-like status. He knew Clemente as a man, so that always has to be a strange perspective. Is the same hold true with you when you hear people sort of cantonize Fred, that you knew him on a personal level, so you never went there, or was that always a feeling that you had when you were with the guy?
That's a good question. Um, I often say, and it's the truth. I mean, I often talk to Fred in the men's room because we use the same men's room on the second floor of QED.
Okay. Yeah.
And while washing your hands, you just talk about things. How's it going? That kind of stuff. And I come in '87, and Fred keeps making programs till 2000, and then he dies in 2003. But he was always a presence, and you didn't want to ever bother him, and you weren't allowed. Like if you had a guest, you couldn't go see Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
could, that was forbidden. But you could, if you bumped into him in the hall, he would be so nice. And I always appreciated the fact that somebody early on said to me, "Well, he's exactly the same as he is on TV, but with an adult sensibility. It's not like he's talking to a kid." And actually, that's one of the things I like about my interview with him is he is operating on a slightly different level, and he laughs. Sometimes he laughs at the questions and that kind of a thing, and I appreciated all of that so much. But uh, I think I can easily say there will be never anyone in my life more famous than Fred Rogers, and um, I'm good friends with the guy who I think he came to QED in '54 the first year, but he wasn't there the first day. And that's our old program director, Sam Silberman. He's still around. He lives out in Penn Hills. And I always like to talk to Sam. And I said something about that show that I made. I said, it's just a Fred talking. And he goes, well, you know what? He said, you have all these people pretending to be Fred and all of that. He said, I would always rather just hear Fred talk.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's really true. We have Tom Hanks playing him because he was a really unusual and good human being. So
before we wrap it up, Rick, real quick, is there going to be a new Kennywood Memories coming down the pike? I mean, that was always growing up in the 80s and 90s. I loved Kennywood Memories, and maybe time for an updated version, or maybe you sneak Idlewild and Sandcastle into that.
Oh my God, he returned to Kennywood.
There was a second one, huh?
I did 2 Nebbies with more footage from Kennywood. I did
a show called That
Kennywood.
What year did you film that in Kennywood, Rick?
In 1988.
Because it looked like it was like 1981. I mean, yeah, right.
I mentioned that. I say this in the docu. I did 2 Nebbies. One called That Kennywood Summer, where I said we did this. This is all footage that we shot in 1988 that we didn't use, and it was so successful. People just went crazy that I did a second one called Don't Stand Up, which is the sign on the racer, Don't Stand Up. Yep. But it amazes me, Pittsburghers' unquenchable thirst about Kennywood. Anything about Kennywood, Pittsburghers are willing to talk about and love. And would I ever go back? No. And the simplest way to explain it is when I did that show in 1988, that was a small family-owned business. It was owned by the Henningers and the McSwiggins, and they still worked there. Now it's a corporate entity.
Right.
You know, now it's part of a corporation, and I don't think they'd ever just let the local public television guy come in and
Yeah.
do whatever he wanted. I shot for like 24 or 26 days out there, and
Well, the old mill will be back, Rick. So it sounds like everyone's excited about that. My son, who's 8, says, "What's the old mill?" And I go, "Well, you just get in a boat and it's dark and then you go through." And he's like, "That sounds boring." And I was like, "Oh, get back to me when you're 15."
Try to sneak on there with the girl that you had the crush on in high school.
Exactly. The old mill is back. Yeah.
Nothing ever happened.
Well, it's always been a boat that goes through, and there's always been little scenes that you could do. But there are incredible stories about what the employees at Kennywood got to see.
I think coronavirus started on the old mill.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, thank you so much for being with us tonight, sharing this time with us. Couldn't imagine a better guy to spend 30 minutes with. And I know Pittsburgh appreciates it. I know the people listening have been sending in comments and saying thanks for giving it the time. And it's great to see you. And thank you very much.
Hey, I'm honored. Thank you guys very much. And, remember, happy birthday to QED tomorrow, 66 years old.
Absolutely. Yep.
Your girl, WQED, 66.
Rick, I could talk to you for hours, man. Like I said, our conversation before we came on, you're just great stories about this great city that we all live in.
Well, I love it, and I still do. So,
thanks for doing what you do, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick.
Excellent.
All right, see you later. Rick Sebak, everybody. Wow, there he goes. Rick Sebak.
There he
goes. What a guy. Happy to have him on. What did you think? Did you feel like you were in the presence of Pittsburgh greatness?
Oh, of course, man. I mean, we grew up in a time when I felt a lot of documentaries that Rick did were really taking off. You had Kennywood Memories. You had the one about I think it was called like Diners and that or something about all the local diners in Pittsburgh. Route 88. I think he did. I mean, he did a whole bunch. And I remember watching those and really thinking it was really cool just to hear some of the stories in and around Pittsburgh and specifically Pittsburgh history.
And what great stocking stuffers,
Always.
Every year is somewhere Kennywood Memory shows up in somebody's stocking.
I'm telling you, he needs to. I get why he wouldn't go back there with it being corporate owned right now, but a Kennywood Memories 2020 version would be spot on just to see. We were kids when that first came out. Now we're taking our kids to Kennywood as adults.
All right. Well, that's day one. Yesterday, Ed and I talked and said, let's do a quarantine show. We have 31 more days left. I don't know what way my finger goes. There you go. And I guess we'll join you back here tomorrow for day 30 on the countdown back to humanity. Ed, will you join me, even if Rick Sebak, even if I can't produce another living legend?
I don't know. If you can get like Bill Hillgrove or something, I'm definitely in. Maybe Sam Nover.
You know what? I wanted to ask Rick. I was going to ask him, hey, who do you have in your phone right now that you can call to be on this show tomorrow?
Oh,
I forgot to ask him. I should have asked him.
Geez. Well, if anybody
send him a message.
There you go.
I'm sure there's got to be someone who wants to jump on there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
How bored is Sally Wiggin right now?
I'm sure she would join us. Let's see.
She's got to be so bored.
Reach out.
Maybe all right, I'll work on it.
Maybe Bob, our old friend Bob Pumpy.
Pomp. We could reunite the Pomp brothers, Bruce and Bob.
I think that's Facebook Live golden. What do they always say? Radio gold.
Radio gold. Facebook Live gold.
Facebook Live gold.
Because Bob and Bruce, they're the Pittsburgh version of the Cuomo brothers.
They are.
Anthony and whatever the other guy.
Which one would be going to? Which one would be the governor? Probably Bruce.
Bob. Well, no, Bob.
Bob's
oh, you're saying because Bob's in broadcasting. Yeah. Yeah, but Bob's more powerful than Bruce.
Maybe. No, yeah. Oh, no. He's Stan Savern's the godfather of Pittsburgh sports. Mark Madden, of course, but Bob Pompiani, you got to put him right there with those two guys, right?
Well, Ed, this was great. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody, on 31 more days with Brian and Ed. This was great. Ed, good night.
Good night. Stay healthy, everyone. Stay healthy.
Good night, everybody.
Stay healthy.
Good night. Good night.